to learn how to read the wrinkles. Have you ever heard that before? And how do you learn how to do that? What does this mean? What are these wrinkles telling us, and what do I do to fix it? I know that this is a common thing that a lot of people struggle with, and it took me a while to learn when I was learning fitting. So I thought I would start a new series called Read the Wrinkles, where we can go over specific examples of things that come up often and how you read those wrinkles so you know what to do to fix it. So let's dive in. Hello and welcome to Creative Costume Academy, my little corner on the internet. I am your pattern nerd friend, Trisha, and I am happy to discuss all things pattern making, fitting, and sewing. That's what we love to talk about here on my channel. So today we're going to be looking at these wrinkles and what do they mean. So to get a closer look, let's go over to our little bodice and see what's really going on here. All right, so now I have my lovely assistant here, Isabel, and she is going to be helping us with this example. I do want to offer a disclaimer. It has been really hard over the last few years that I've been teaching fitting to make things intentionally not fit. It seems like when I see it out in the wild, I know exactly what to do, but to recreate it, I do go the opposite of how to fix it, but it's always a little bit tricky. And the other thing I want to mention is Isabel, she's got an arm that we've made for her, but of course it's never going to act the same way as a human real body arm. So hopefully you can get an idea of what's going on with her bodice, but do bear with me. And there might be other things that show up with how this bodice is fitting her, but we're going to focus on the wrinkles that we want to concentrate on today. All right, let's get a little closer look at what's going on. What I'm trying to show in this example are these wrinkles right here. We've got these wrinkles coming off under the arm, and of course we also have those same diagonal lines coming up from the armhole in the back as well. How are we reading these wrinkles? So you can see we've got a couple of those wrinkles here, and they're kind of coming from under the arm. I was told at one point to read the wrinkles, you either wherever the wrinkles are pointing up needs to come down, or where they're pointing down needs to come up. So in this case, if I am trying to make this part of the bodice go up, if I pull it up here, see how that already immediately starts getting those wrinkles to go away. And let's see what's happening in the back. In the back also, we're seeing those wrinkles go away. So that is true, except what's happening is we're still having these wrinkles underneath the arm, because what we're doing is we're essentially, this armhole is too high on this bodice and it needs to be lowered. Let's say there's a sleeve that attaches to this. We could raise this top of the shoulder to get rid of those wrinkles, but then we would need to lower the armhole again. And you can even see with these wrinkles that are still showing up that we should lower this armhole again. So I'm going to grab some pins and I'm going to start by raising this bit here, which already is giving us some improvement, but then how do we deal with also lowering this arm? So what I'm doing essentially by pulling up this shoulder here is I'm taking it in a little bit here at where the shoulder meets at the armhole, but it doesn't really need to come down in the neck. Now on this example, I am raising the side that the wrinkles were pointing down to, but sometimes it might make more sense to open up the neck here and let this part fall, so that what essentially we're trying to do, if we have wrinkles going like this, if we lower the front part and it's able to lower, then it's going to balance out the wrinkles and not give us wrinkles. Same thing with if we raise where it's pointing down to. So if we're raising where it's pointing down to, we are also leveling out the wrinkles and no longer having those diagonal lines. So in this case, for this example, and I'm testing it by just pinching it up here in the shoulder, and I am seeing some improvement already. So I'm going to go ahead and pin this here, but since my arm is basically in the way and I can't raise it anymore because the arm is blocking it, then what you're going to want to do is open up this underarm seam. And if you open up that underarm seam a little bit, do we see how some of those wrinkles start to go away underneath there as well? And I could either fold this in like so and see how that feels. Already much better improvement. Let's see what's happening in the back. Same thing back here. Those wrinkles are almost gone, and with me opening up that underarm seam, it's definitely given me a much smoother, no wrinkles in this area and no wrinkles in this area either. So what essentially is happening here, let's look under the arm, is that because the armhole was too high and needed to be lowered, the arm was getting in the way and not allowing me to pull this up even more to where it needed to go to eliminate those wrinkles. See, I could even pull it up just slightly a little bit more, and I think that that fits better. It's causing all of this to just lay in the right position. So once I've got this pulled up and I have it opened up enough underneath to give me the fit that I'm looking for, what essentially I would end up doing, I could mark where I want that armhole to be and blend it back in with where I want that shoulder to be. So I'm repositioning where that armhole is positioned at the side of the bodice. And you would do the same thing on the back as well. You draw where that armhole needs to go. So you see what's happening because we've pulled it up here and taken away some of that length of the armhole there, we are lowering the armhole underneath the arm so it can sit in the right position to eliminate our wrinkles and give us a solution. So what does this look like? What does this adjustment look like on our pattern? Let's get into that. So the way I like to do fittings is exactly the way that I showed you. I like to pin it and get it to look the way I want it to look while it's on the body so I can make sure that I'm making the adjustment that's gonna work. And once I take it off of the body, then I am marking the safety pins that I used, and then I will take out those safety pins. And what I like to do, especially if you're dealing with a mock-up, now obviously, if this is a final garment, you won't be able to do that, but if it's a mock-up, you can cut it up. You can cut up your mock-up, and it makes it really easy to lay back onto your pattern and know what adjustments need to be made using your mock-up as a guide, so you don't have to do a bunch of math or anything else like that. Then this makes it really easy to lay back onto my pattern and actually see what adjustments need to be made, like right here and right here. And I can go ahead and trace those onto my pattern. And I would definitely want to check and make sure that my seams still lined up, and I could cut off this excess, adding back in my seam allowance. But that is one way to copy this adjustment back onto my pattern. So I'd have a little bit of truing up there. Let me show you another way. If you're going to do it the other way, you don't need to cut it all apart. You just need to measure how far down you're lowering your armhole. In our case, it's about 1.5 inches. Then you could go to your pattern, which I have. And even if you're using a commercial pattern, I would highly suggest you draw in where your seam allowance is. Now for this one, I only have seam allowance on the shoulder and the side seam. But if I was working with a regular pattern or I had a sleeve, then I would obviously have seam allowance in the armhole as well. So you always want to be adjusting from the stitching line, not the cut edge, including the seam allowance when you're making adjustments. So what you want to do is first draw a box, because we're essentially going to be moving this down slightly. And so I'm just going to draw a box here somewhere in the middle of my shoulder in the front. And then using my ruler, I'm going to square out from the front to give myself just a box around that armhole. And I'll go ahead and do the same thing in the back. Okay, and once you have that box, let's just focus on the front here for a second. We measured that this armhole needs to lower 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna give myself a mark of where I know they meet, and then I would go 1.5 inches down. I should have maybe done that a little bit higher, but yeah, essentially we're gonna go to this point. So when you have that mark, you can cut that box out, and you want to move this notch lower the amount of how much lower you need to drop your armhole. Now, of course, there's some crazy things happening here, but I'll talk about that in a second, because we did make an adjustment here, so it makes sense. And then here, we're just shortening this seam underneath, which makes sense because we opened that seam when it was on the body to get that information. So once you've got it in position and you've lowered it, then you will have to true this up, connecting where your neck was with where your shoulder now needs to be. So it does give you a stronger angle on that side, and then you would want to straighten out this side seam, connecting that as well. So this, and then add your seam allowance back in. And you can see that that gives us basically the same adjustment that we made for our going off of our cut up mock-up. So same thing, we're changing the angle of our shoulder and we're lowering this. We're just doing it in a different way. And you would do the same thing on the back and match your seams. Now, this is the adjusted pattern and what it looks like on the body. We do still have a little bit of wrinkling, but that I think is more for wear, but a lot smoother through here. We don't have those wrinkles anymore. And you can see here on the back, we don't have those wrinkles as well. So that is how we read the wrinkles for when we've got them right here. So there you have it, our first example of how to read the wrinkles. I really hope that you're enjoying this series, and I will come back to you with a couple of more examples for our Read the Wrinkles series. Now, if you're enjoying this sort of thing and you want to learn more about pattern making, do check out my free pattern masterclass. There's a link for that down below. And if you really want to get into learning a lot about pattern making, surrounded by friends who are also learning the same thing and really understand and get how exciting it is when you actually are able to read the wrinkles, then you might be interested in joining us for PatternCon. Now, what is PatternCon, you might ask? Well, it is a new convention that I created. It was such a success. Everybody had so much fun. We had 250 people in Charlotte for our first ever inaugural year of PatternCon. So we are going ahead with 2026. We are booking teachers right now, and tickets should go on sale very soon. So if you want to hear more about PatternCon and check out all of the details, check out the link below. You can check us out at patterncon.com, and you can also sign up for the party list to hear more about when tickets go on sale. We would love to have you join us, just a bunch of pattern nerd friends, and learning this superpower together. So that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll come back soon to learn more about how to read the wrinkles.